Hi everyone, it's Catherine here from Ink Figure Cat. I wanted to play with the jelly prints that I have been making, and I also thought I know what I've not used for a little while, and that's this fall leaf. I'm going to call it a bundle from Waffle flower. I think it was released last year, but I've not really used it much and it's just gorgeous. So I thought I'd do a couple of cards using that. The first one, I have literally just popped the stencil down and then I've chosen 3 different colours of ink. Tangelo or Twist, Mossy Meadow and Early Espresso are the 3 colours of ink that I've used, just so people who may have Stampin' Up! Inks, including very old ones, in their stash. Right, the second background, I decided to use the die first. Now, the die is like a cover plate die, but it just die cuts the edges of each of the leaves and leaves the centres attached, so it kind of pops them up. It aligns perfectly with the stencil. So once I've done the die cutting, I'm now going over again with the inks. Again, those 3 same ink colours. I thought they were lovely and autumnal and worked with those backgrounds. Because the backgrounds have obviously got the pattern in them already and they've got some kind of texture and they've got the paint on them, or I think one of them's an inky background and then the other one's a painty background. I can't remember exactly which one's which. But yeah, so one of them's got this dimension by having the little pop-ups and the other one's just a flat. Now, these stamps are fabulous, except for the fact that, and they coordinate perfectly with the other die that you can see off to the left-hand side. But what would have been brilliant is if it was just one stamp, and it's not. So what I've done is I've never moved them off the back, and I just glued with some Pritt stick. I glue the set of stamps still attached to their little cover sheet to my stamp block. That way that they stamp all in the perfect place, and it makes it really easy to do the die cutting. Okay, I know that they weren't necessarily designed to be done in that way, but that's the way I like to do them. So I'll clean it up again and it's perfectly fine, and at some point they may actually end up being used as individual stamps, but I've not. So I just stamped them all with the with the Mossy Meadow, and now having die cut them, so I stamped them twice, die cut them twice, having stamped them, I'm now just going over with the inks again, just to add a little bit more colour to them. They don't stand out particularly well in terms of the stamped image. I think it would have been better if I'd have stamped and embossed. That would have worked really well. But anyway, it works for what I'm doing. So we are going with that, I think, is it for the stamping. Now, those, I'm just doing a good clean up to make sure that everything's clean. Now, my little stencil, I went and grabbed this other sheet of cream cardstock. I sprayed the stencil that had got the ink on it, and that just lifted some of the ink onto that background. It does give some of the shapes, but to be honest, that doesn't really matter. Again, I'm just adding a little bit of texture, a little bit of colour. Now, this other die does the imprint for the veins of the leaves. So I'm die cutting that out twice. Obviously, it's all off camera. And then I'm going to align those outline stamps, outline dies, sorry, and I'm going to run that through as well. Right, we've got, another set to be done. Okay, I'll speed the video up a little bit more. Right, on to assembling the cards. And I didn't have a clue as to what kind of card I wanted to make, who it was for, or anything along those lines. I'm literally just playing with the mediums at this point and all of my supplies. So I grabbed a green for the background, for this one that's got the little poppy up pieces. I'm not sure how well it comes across on the video how those work. But hopefully you've got the general sense, and you'll see at the end from the pictures the dimension that you get. Now this other one, I decided to stick on some craft cardstock. I am just using scraps at this point, so hence I have cut down that panel just so it works with this particular piece of craft cardstock. Right, I have, as I say, just fiddling around trying to work out what I want to do, and I decide, right, I'm going to start clustering up these leaves, and then I'm going to find a panel to do as my sort of sentiment on, and I grabbed my stitched ovals. I don't use ovals very often in my crafting. It's something that's a little bit unusual for me to go and grab. And again, I am choosing things that are scraps. These are not things that I have thought about in advance, but I happen to have this sort of like Calypso coral cardstock, and I thought that's perfect size for this. And I'm just laying out my clusters and then sticking down, sticking them to my oval by adding a bit of tape behind. The first time I did it with glue and it just wasn't very secure. I've then die cut 2 cream ovals to stick behind, and that's just stacking it up and giving it a bit of dimension. And then I decide, right, I'm going to pull in this sort of like, I think it's petal pink colour. Again, it's just a scrap. I had it in my scrap box, so I thought perfect. And I've grabbed a sentiment. This sentiment is actually from Simon Says Stamp Beautiful Flowers. I just thought it was cute and I thought it worked perfectly, and I've stamped that in the green, just offset to the bottom right, and I'm going to offset that that oval also to the bottom right, and then add a few more leaves. I did come in later with some flowers for this one because I decided with the petal pink it had become a little bit more feminine, so it could live with some leaves, with some flowers on. I grabbed this sort of waxed linen thread, and I'm just going to wrap it around randomly and adhere that down. And then I'm going to go and grab the cardstock that I want to then adhere it to. Bear with me whilst I just faff with those bits. And again, a scrap of cardstock in that coral colour, perfect for tying in the colours. So you've got the brown, you've got the orangey colours, and then that pinky colour. And then I've stuck that down. Right, onto the more dimensional one, and this one I decide I want to keep it slightly more masculine, so the coral's fine, but I don't want to add in the petal pink. Instead, I decide to add in this orange, and you can see it's a partially die cut circle, which I am going to use to then cut my oval out. So, you know, using up partial die cuts, and yeah, just pulled in that orange. It's quite zingy, quite bright, but it works. And even though it's got the coral in it, it still works, I think, as a masculine coloured card, because the coral works with the sort of the orangey colours in the background. So again, clustering some leaves around for my sentiment, but this time I'm going to go in with some foam tabs in order to stick this down, because I really want the dimension from those poppy up bits. Oh, sorry, yeah, I did die cut another oval just behind, just to secure those leaves in place and make it quite sturdy. But yeah, these are little foam tabs. And then I think, oh, I want to put some of that linen thread in, but this time as a sort of like cluster behind. So my first wrap isn't quite big enough, second one works better. So I just need to adhere those ends in place, and then I use a little bit of glue on those foam tabs to make sure that they stick well before sticking them down. So that's my card fronts done. I decided to put them on 5x7s card blanks rather than on the standard 4x6, just because I thought they were quite heavy toppers with all the layers. Oh, this is where I've pulled in, and I've pulled in some pierced flowers that are just ready die cut from scraps from previous die cutting sessions, just from some fairly random colours, but I think that they work. And then I decide to do something for the inside and just tie them all in together. So I add some more of the pierced blooms, add them to this strip of the background that I'd cut off, and I'm just going to add that on the inside. And then on the other one, I am just going to add a little strip of this coral, and again add a leaf onto it, this time across the middle. And then I take that sentiment again, stamp it on the sentiment on the strip, and then again on the inside at the bottom. And there's them done. Colour looks a little bit off on these, I'm really sorry. It was a weird light and my camera just doesn't seem to have worked very well, but I think you can get the gist, and you can see there the dimension on that pop-up cover plate. I think it's so cute. You can just see the dark green poking through. So I hope you enjoyed. Please do give me a thumbs up if you did. Leave me a comment below. Would you have added in the pink at this point? Because I'm now going, ooh, I'm not sure. But no, I think it works. I think it's all right. Please subscribe to see more. There's plenty of more videos coming up. And until next time, goodbye.